Hey, we're live.
We're live, so hello everybody. Very exciting podcast today before the holidays, and very fun. We have Tim Pewitt here, who is our guest. Tim Pewitt is my brother-in-law, so I don't know what's fun about that, but he is. The fun
Full
part that
disclosure.
Be careful what questions you ask me. I got stories to tell.
Okay. So let's keep going. Tim is a finance professional who actually turned a beer brewer and now opened a brewery in Rahway, New Jersey, and scaled it and won multiple awards for being the best local beer, and is beloved and is now spreading his beer wings all over the state of New Jersey. So, a very fun and lighthearted conversation. So, welcome, Tim. And what is on your mind?
Well, first, thank you, Jeff, Eric, and Elena. I'm honored to be here. What's more fun, and I guess the reason why I'm here is I love beer, and what's more fun to talk about beer. So
I
I'm
guess
honored.
drinking beer might be more fun, but yes.
So,
Yep.
so what's on my mind? So I'm kind of my background originally was kind of journalism. So every story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I guess I'll start at the beginning because that usually makes sense for me. I started out. I had always loved beer. Had at the time my early career, I was working for Chase downtown. And one of my very, very, very dear friends and colleagues, his name was Gary Andrasco. We come in from the weekend. Everybody's talking, what'd you do over the weekend? And he says, I made beer. And I was like, what?
You can do that.
Revelation to me. I mean, you can make beer. So he kind of went through the process, explained it to me. And, I've loved to cook for a long time. There's science involved. Now when you're owning a brewery, there's a lot of, personal interaction and creativity you get to do. So anyway, Gary told me that he made beer at home, and I was like, well, I got to try this. So couldn't jump on the internet when this happened. This was, 30 plus years ago. I just went down to a newsstand and bought a beer brewing Zimmergy magazine and found a place out in Seattle called Liberty Malt Supply. They I ordered a kit. They sent it. We made the first batch. Actually, my late brother, John, and I made this beer together. He also came out and we popped the first bottle, and it was like, son of a gun. It actually really tastes pretty good. So from there, that's really kind of how it started. And then, just started out, what was a hobby. And then at one point, my wife and I at the time moved into a neighborhood with everybody who lived in that neighborhood was like 28 with, 2 kids. And the women would have a Tupperware party. And then my phone would start ringing and people would say, Tim, what kind of beer were you going to bring? So all the ladies would go to the Tupperware party. My garage door would go up. We would start drinking the last batch we made and making a new one. So all the guys in the neighborhood, when somebody was coming with pampered chef, whatever it was great news. We're going over to Tim's house. We're going to make some beer and drink some beer. And so now for me, I just know it's a lot of work making beer. But now when you have a dozen people helping you out, I mean, like, this is fun. It's a lot better just hanging out and drinking beer and talking about beer. So that was really kind of the start of it. And then along the way, after I had working for Chase for many years and then going to AIG, kind of my last assignment per se was really kind of being involved and being responsible for kind of closing up our little unit of AIG. So that was a pretty big project. I was able to take some of the resources that came with that assignment and invested in this brewery. And I have to say, it's obviously talked to my wife Selena, and I had a lot of friends along the way who drank the beer. A couple of which said, hey, this is good. You should go pro. So I appreciate those people who said that. I thank them all the time because I don't know if I would be here if they weren't the ones saying, hey, we think you can do it. So, and then
But
after that,
here's the question. Wait, so when you were making this decision, right? it's one thing brewing it at home. What do you make? 20 bottles, right? So
Yeah, well, we made you generally 5 gallons, which is about 2 cases of 12-ounce bottles. And yeah,
okay.
I started on with a lobster pot, one of those big black lobster pots on the stove. So, the whole
Okay,
house would
so
smell.
you
No one
broke
was
the
more
lobster
happier than my wife, though, when we started up, because we got brewing operations out of her kitchen.
right. So here we go, brewing operation in the kitchen, lobster pot, and all of a sudden there are pot stills. There is like large scale. It's a whole
Yeah.
different ball game. How does one turn pro like that on a scale?
Well, first, just to kind of finish up and let you know how we finally made the decision. I mentioned it to my wife Selena one day. I said, "Hey, we had actually visited a couple breweries, and I just said to her, just to see what she would say, I think I'd really love to do this." And she didn't stop for a beat. She just said, "You should do it." And
Nice.
I thank her all the time for that, because I'm not sure without her support, I would be here.
I just want to understand: is lobster a key ingredient in making your like?
It's not. We never eat. There might have been a few lobster or low country boils that I think Elena has been to that we had with that pot, but we don't cut it out. But believe it or not, there's some people who make oyster stouts. So,
oh really?
You're not too far off, Eric.
I was going to ask the other direction. Like, have you ever boiled the lobster in the beer? So I don't know what.
No, but people have put oysters in their beer. So. You know what? I wouldn't waste. I love lobster. I wouldn't waste one on a beer. No.
So going pro, what thing did you learn going pro that was sort of the most surprising? Like, what was the thing that you're like, whoa, that was not what I was expecting to be a challenge or a success or whatever? What was?
Well, so first of all, the biggest challenge was finding a place to have a brewery. After finding a name, literally we went maybe a year and a half. Every time you can sit there and think of 1,000 cool beer names, type it into the internet, and you're going to find out somebody's taking it. Mm-hmm. So, as I said before, at the point we were looking for it, Elena came out with Wet Ticket. She told us a story, and I was like, that's it. So it was really a perfect name for it. And if you're people don't know what it means, during the time of Prohibition, you still had your Republicans and Democrats, but you also had everybody had to say, who are they going to vote for? You're going to vote for the people who are going to repeal Prohibition, and you're going to vote for the people who want to keep it in place. So obviously the wets, or the people from the wet ticket, were the ones who want to repeal Prohibition. So just think about that for a moment. There was a period of time in this country where the government told you couldn't drink beer. It just blows my mind that could have ever happened here.
So your ticket is a wet ticket, Tim, in more ways than one.
That's right. That's
well,
right.
So it's interesting.
Kind of our tagline here is "Wet Ticket, where nothing is prohibited." Almost.
That's great. I love it.
I love that though. Like this idea, like brands need stories. That's how they, human brains connect to brands and whatever. So it's very cool to have.
And that is exactly why right away I knew that was a great name.
Well, so I'd be interested to what, obviously going from sort of being a finance professional to building a brewery was, I'm sure it's not the same.
No,
interested to hear about what are sort of the lessons, sort of less about the beer part and more about the business part that you sort of learned.
Well, first of all, the business part, I mean, finding a place to have the brewery was the biggest challenge. I had friends I know that were, I had told them, first of all, when you're doing something like this, the best piece of advice I would give people is that when now you have committed to do this, I remember distinctly that the first person that I told I was going to do it, and that to me was like, I'm going to do this now, because now if I don't, I'm disappointing these people, and I'm going to disappoint myself. So if you have whatever your dream is, if you can't tell somebody else, at some point you got to share it with somebody else, because they will help you along the way. So it was a big moment. So, telling somebody, but finding a location for a brewery is very difficult. There's all kinds of zoning laws. You have to find a landlord that is willing to do it. You have to have the town behind you. And so finally, when we landed in Rahway, we really had all those. We have an old Woolworths here, so we have a big enough space. We have like over 3,600 square feet that we can, have a big production space. And I can show you that if you're interested later. We have enough room up front here for a tasting room, which is key. Has made us a part of the community, has really made it why, not only, me, but our employees and all the people who come here, they love it, because of the vibe that our employees have created. But we got a loading dock in the back. So there's a lot of small kind of breweries across New Jersey that don't have all those things. They may be in 800 square feet, but they don't have a loading dock. I mean, to get the amount of grain that we need here, I mean, logistically, you really had to have it. So having found all those things, that was kind of, you asked about it, was our biggest challenge. That was probably.
Wait, Tim. I think that I'm just picturing it in my mind. A finance professional, right, running around the state of New Jersey looking for a place with a loading dock because he needs to deliver grain. Right. I think it's just somewhat mind-boggling, the type of change, right, that somebody can make.
Well, all these things. So my background was journalism. I did that for a couple of years out of college and worked for a pretty big firm. Doing that, had a lot of great experiences, met a lot of high-level people, gave me some great advice and experiences, and then moved on to Chase. So I've done a lot of different things along the way, and I think that has helped me. From marketing to sales to managing, salespeople to crunching numbers to understanding, what simple return on investment is. So the fact that I got to do a little bit of everything, I think, is what has really helped me out.
So Tim, like as far as scaling, I mean, presumably your distribution, it sounds like it started off with you tried it, then your neighbors tried it, and now you have your brewery and you're getting it out to local. But can you talk about that sort of expansion and where you're going to go with it and how far you reach?
Yeah, well, what's happening in the beer business right now, and then just in general, there's a few things going on. One of all, there's some headwinds. There's, besides you've got all the different type of canned cocktails, spritzers, there's all, and even THC infused products. There's a lot of competition, and especially with the way the economy is right now, there's not a lot of people who are willing to go out and spend $8 on a pint of craft beer. There's just not as many of them. So because of that issue, the beer business has really become what I describe as hyper local. So we're actually trying to sell as much beer as close to the brewery, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it as possible. And the reason for that is those people who go to a liquor store, somewhere, whether it's in Central Jersey or Morris County, an hour away, they enjoy your beer. Guess what? Well, it's kind of like a bee coming to honey. If they like that beer, they're going to come and visit your brewery.
Yep.
So the other thing we have that going for us here, and you wanted me to talk a little bit about leadership and kind of guidance, is people now more. What's happening is there's less alcohol being sold at restaurants because more people just are staying home. More people are staying home and drinking, and I think what we have here is really a sense of home, a sense of community, a sense of family when people come here. So it doesn't feel like they're going to a nightclub, a bar. It feels like they're kind of coming home. And I think in terms of what our employees do to create that, really for the most part, all I've done is watch what they do and ask everybody else to say, okay, this is what our successful people are doing. And, they really ran with that. My background, though, listen, I went to college. I was probably more better at the social stuff than the school stuff. So, I'm pretty good at being able to sit down and talk to people. And that's the funnest thing for me to now. Like, we're releasing this new beer today, the Droning On. And I'm going to sit here and, talk to people and find out if they like it or not and what they like or don't like. And if you're looking for advice on how to scale your business, if you're not talking to your customers and interacting and making them part of the process, which I learned, in my corporate life. I mean, I worked in an industry where I bought the product, and then I went out and worked in the industry where I was selling the product. So from having that perspective of what the customer wants and what the good companies are doing, was kind of very, very helpful for me. So if you're gonna scale your business, you're not going to scale your business by creating what you want. You have to make what you want at the level of with your margins. But what you really have to create is something that's at your margins that somebody else wants. I know it's all so simple, but I mean, there's a lot of people I saw in the corporate world who didn't get that. Well, we're going to keep doing it this way. Well, and I would try to impress upon them. If we keep doing it that way, we're going to lose business.
Well, and I think that's a really important point you're making. Not just about, I mean, obviously about listening to your customers, but I love the fact that you talked about listening to your employees as well. That so many, I run into lots of situations where you've got founders, startup leaders, et cetera, where they are trying to essentially kind of control everything, as opposed to kind of, let's understand what works. Let's let people try stuff, and then let's take the best of those things and so forth. So it seems like a really good, mix of understanding, not just what you want to accomplish, but what everybody wants to do to help the business be successful. I like that approach.
I'm curious, Tim, given that what you and Jeff were just talking about, do you have any incredibly frustrating fail stories for any of your beers? Like, have some of your beers just come out and you're like, nope?
Well, I quite honestly, knock on wood, what we do, I don't know if you can see, but most of the stuff you can see right there in the lower, that corner right there, we have a little 10-gallon pilot system.
Okay.
And so everything that eventually, and so that's 10 gallons. We have a 10-barrel brew house, and we usually double batch everything. So we're making 20 barrels of beer for each batch. And so before I get to that stage of deciding, okay, we've got this recipe down, we're going to make 20 barrels. We make a few of these, working on these little guys right here. You see a little barrel there. That's 10 gallons. And so, that's kind of how. But have there been any fails? There's been a couple along the way. But it's not a big deal if I fail on 10 gallons. We have had, less than, maybe one or two that went to the big system that failed.
So has droning on? You showed us the logo earlier. If you want to put that up, but is droning on in the 10-gallon phase, or is it in the back?
It's in between. So that one was kind of okay. Well, let's. We have in our big system, we can do something less. So that was a 3-barrel batch. And so we won't can that. Generally, everything we can up that goes on to the big system.
But it's such a cultural moment here in New Jersey. I don't know if you guys even know, there is a Facebook group apparently with thousands of people who talk about drone sightings in New Jersey and post weird drones.
Then you gotta do me a favor to go up on the social media and share our post that's up about the droning on. Maybe
we will
get us some traction.
100% we will. But it's just interesting that you are very quickly jumping on the trend, really. Now I know that you have to get approvals. How do you get the expedited approvals? Or
well, for this beer, since we're not putting it in cans, we don't have to get our little. If you can see it.
Yep.
It didn't print very well, but we don't have to get, if we were just doing something as a poster for use in here, we don't have to get approved. But yeah, getting every label that we put on a can and sell at a liquor store, that does have to be approved. And I can tell you, dealing with the federal government is no picnic.
Oh yes, but Tim, wait, droning on, what style of beer is it? So what is it?
It is a lager. It is an American lager, which really has some components of a European lager and an American lager, but it's pretty much the beer that, my father used to have a Budweiser. That's what he drank. He'd have one a night. But it's a little bit different. It's got some American hops in it too. It's been dry hopped. So it's got some kind of old world meets new world American lager, and it's just it's a beer that I kind of described it as a beer that tastes like beer. And so,
Okay.
we got things up there on the board. We've got a raspberry sour, we've got a black cherry hard seltzer, we got a pina colada sour. Those are some of the changes we've had to make to our menu to make sure we're bringing in a diverse group of beer likers. We usually have 16 different beers on tap. But this is kind of beer at its simplest form. It's beer that tastes like beer, and so
I'm
market for that.
So I'm gonna actually. We've gotten to the time in the episode where I turn it over to ChatGPT to ask you a couple of questions. But before I do, it's going to ask you funny questions. But I was just thinking, you've got this drone one. Do you have like an IPAI or a or a chat IPA or something? I don't know, like throw that out next beer.
We don't.
That's the next
probably
beer.
more if I was more, system minded and computer minded, we do. But since I really don't understand that much, and that's one of my best things. I know what I don't know. We haven't gone there yet.
Well, right, you can do drone. If you can do drone delivery of drone.
There you go.
That'd be cool.
That's a good spot. Even if you could only just do.
But listen, if they were drone delivering beer in my neighborhood, I'd be taking those drones down and taking it myself.
All right,
well, so let's actually ask the actual questions from ChatGPT. It's interesting, Tim. We have been doing this probably for 20 episodes or more now, where I ask ChatGPT, and I always ask her for 5 funny questions. So I said 5 or 10 funny questions, and this time I said, what are 5 funny questions that you could ask a finance guy who built a brewery? And I used to ask people, do you want thought-provoking or absurd? But all of them are absurd, so I'm just going to share them with you. And
sure.
It's ChatGPT, interestingly, is just getting more funny. So the first one was, what's harder, balancing a budget or balancing hops in an IPA? So
that actually is a very, very good question. And this is how I explained to everybody. That is a great question. So, man, this ChatGPT maybe has some legs. I should probably get on board with it, right? So I explained to everybody, making an IPA can be very tricky because there's a fine line. It's like the way I explain it is, there's a line. You want to get your toe up to the line, but not going over it. If you go over the line, the beer is going to be too bitter. You're not going to be able to taste your hop flavors. And there's so many great things going on with these new hops they're releasing. So I would certainly say getting that hop flavor without putting your toe over the line and getting bitterness is much harder.
Awesome. So good. So actually a thought-provoking and absurd question. All right. My other question is from ChatGPT is, when you say you've got great liquidity, are we talking about beer or finances?
Well, knock on wood, my partner and I, when people told me how much it was going to be, what the capital investment it was going to be to open a brewery, and versus what we were able to do it at, and the way we've operated our business, the capital improvements we've made, the equipment, buying our own canning line, we've been, knock on wood, we've been able to remain, very liquid and avoid basically debt.
So for you, liquidity is both, huh?
Yes. Yeah. But drinking the liquid is much better.
Much better, right?
Than worrying about money you have or don't have.
So I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
So I have a question, a real question, not a ChatGPT question for you is, what do you have like events, live music, any of those kinds of things at your brewery? Like, how do you bring crowds in, that way, or is that?
Yes, yeah, I'm glad you asked. Yes, the events are really, kind of a special time. I love live music. That's kind of like my, big thing. I love live music. So to bring bands back here, we really focus on folks that play original music. We have a local band here called the Rusty Monks that if you ever, it's the best free show you've ever seen. 12 guys, bongo player, drum player, full horn section. Some couple of ladies who can just, who've got some incredible pipes. But we've done some new things. We've had we've been, doing some new events, over the course of the year. We had a cigar event here with a local guy who owns one of these places where you go and smoke cigars. We did a cigar event here in the back. We have a pretty big back parking lot, and we put up a big tent, and it was just amazing how many people we got. And I didn't know, there was so many people there, and so many women came. A lot of women smoke cigars. I can't smoke a cigar for whatever reason. I've tried about a dozen times, and every time it takes me like 3 days to recover.
I saw on social, Tim, that you had a dog event.
We've had what we call yappy hours, and it's amazing. So we've had some, some of these yappy hour crowds that have been big as some of the, the really good band crowds that we've had.
Do you ever have a rabbit event and call it a hoppy hour? I mean, no, it's like multiple.
Oh, Eric.
Wow. The dad jokes are coming out.
I like it. That was good.
Okay, so here's my real question. How do you get the word? So are you at a point where word of mouth is just and your presence as a brewery, it just kind of sells itself, or are you out there? How are you advertising? How are you marketing your beer, your brewery, etc.?
Well, for the most part, it's social media. I mean, we have actually done a decent amount of advertising. We had a billboard out on Route 9, which is, we're here in Rahway. We shout out to Rahway. If you haven't been to Rahway, some great restaurants here, some new ones opening up all the time. You got to come check it out. We also have a relationship. There's a local guy who came into the brewery. His name is Al Catullo, and Al does the news for Joe Piscopo on AM 970 The Answer. Mm-hmm. So we've sponsored his show before. We'll probably be back sponsoring it again soon. And besides that, for the most part, a lot of it is word of mouth. People come in. They have a couple of beers. They see the vibe they have here. They enjoy the beer, and that's been more than enough to allow us to drive some profitable growth. And we've done some social media, and just recently, actually, we have somebody she's not working full time, but she's helped us a lot with promoting some of our events, creating and managing some of these events, and helping us get this social media out. I mean, I used to have to sit here at the bar, take the pictures, write everything, and after a while it gets to be too much. So like I said before, I know what I don't know, and I know this young lady knows more than I do.
And I think also just the fact that you have a lot of flavors and variety and different products in your line draws a lot of people. So maybe you could talk to us about the product innovation.
Sure. Elena's absolutely right. I mean, I could, go down or even show you a picture of what we have. We usually have 16 different beers on tap. Now we actually had, though I resisted it for a long time, we have a couple of sour beers. And so finally, we have a little suggestion box back there, and I do enjoy looking at it. And I was hesitant to do a sour because then if the sours somehow contaminate your equipment, it can make every beer you have sour. But with decent cleaning procedures, it's really not too much of a risk. But we made it, after going through that suggestion box, which I soon named that's not a suggestion box. I called it the "We Want a Sour box." So after after finally listening, it was just amazing how well these sours have done for us.
Yeah. Sours are definitely having a moment, I think.
Listening what people are asking for is very important. And one more story about the "We Want a Sour box." We also had I don't know if you can see the ceiling. The ceiling's got all kinds of acoustical panels. When we moved in for a few years, of course, we were investing in new business. We were investing in some new equipment. But the noise level in here, when it would get crowded, and it frequently does, I mean, it was just overwhelming. You could not have a conversation with somebody. And for whatever reason, we hemmed and hawed. We tried to work with the landlord to get some help. It didn't happen. But finally, I opened up the "We Want a Sour box." And in the sour box, it says, the acoustics in this place, I mean, it was certainly said, the beer is great, love the people, bartenders are great, but the acoustics in here are horrible, and the owners know about it.
Yeah.
So once I saw that, I was like, all right, we got to get this done.
It's time. Well, actually, that brings up a question because, as a heading towards the grumpy old man phase of my life, is your clientele in a specific demographic, or do you kind of span multiple demographics across age groups? And
great question, and a part of the reason why we love it here in Rawway, because there is everybody from every demographic group. There's it is truly a representation of any kind of different demographic that you would want to slice it up, and it just makes it, to me, more fun. And again, kudos to Rawway. Is I just see it as a place where all these divergent groups, it just seems they all get along. There's just everybody gets along. It's what the community has kind of done for us. We had some times during COVID where we didn't know what was going to happen, and I think the way we kind of we operated a couple of times, we opened up the door, we had a new release, there was people lined up outside our door to get our new release. They couldn't come in, sit down, but they could come in and buy 4-packs or growlers or crowlers. And just walking down that line and talking to people, I would get emotional. I get emotional now thinking about it. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes that, this is people were, hey, Tim, we're here to support you. And it's meant a lot. It still does.
Amazing. So we are at 32 minutes in our 30-minute episode. So we are headed towards the wrap up. Tim, as I mentioned in our pre-show, run through, we like to ask everybody to give one thing they want to leave the audience with. I always make the guest go first. It's kind of a hazing ritual, so you don't get to think about what you want to say. So what's one thing that you would leave the audience with?
Well, sometimes I clearly, for me, one thing, and I count my lucky stars, all the time. My whole corporate life, I can't tell you I had a bad day in my corporate. There were certain, conversations you didn't want to have with people, but I always enjoyed what I did. I found ways to make it, to use my skills and make it enjoyable for me. But where what I'm doing and where I am now, I just love what I do. I love the people. I love the process of making the beer. I love the process of going out and talking about the beer with liquor stores and bars and new customers. There's very little about it that I don't like, except having to wake up, and be here at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and having to test a 9% imperial oatmeal stout to see if it's ready to be packaged. That's not fun sometimes.
Okay.
Other than that, if that's all I have to complain about, I'm doing okay.
That's
awesome.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Hey, Tim, before I give my one thing, what's the best place for people to reach you if they want to connect or they want to learn more about Wet Ticket?
I certainly would, advise them that they could certainly check out our social media, through that, or our website. We always have a current draft list and a current, list of the cans that are available here in the brewery. We're at wetticketbrewing.com. or wetticketbrewing@gmail.com if they wanted to reach out to us. And, we get a lot, people send us questions all the time. People stop in here when I'm sitting here. This is my office because, we've utilized every single square foot of space, and people come in all the time, and I let them in. And, next thing I know, I'm there shooting a breeze for 20 minutes about beer. So
awesome.
Stop by, come by, have a beer with us, see it for yourself. I think you'll be pleased with the beer and the kind of unique environment our employees have created here.
So I think that's going to be my one thing is, Eric, I think we're going to have to do a trip.
Let me know when you're coming. I'll host.
Stop by the brewery, whatever. No, I really love this story. Love that you've had sort of multiple sort of careers in your life, and it's really cool that you're doing something that you're passionate about and really enjoy. So that'll be my one thing, and I will pass it over to Elena.
Yeah, I will have to second that. My one thing is that loving what you do is essential for success and essential for really dealing well with all the challenges and growing and being happy while you're at it.
And so, one final comment I'll make is that Elena has been also very encouraging in this. She's been here a couple of times, and she's made the comment a couple times that Tim, I see how you interact with these people.
Yeah.
And so that's encouraging. That's
awesome.
That's great. So my one thing is going to be one, I had written down that it's great to see that this came from a passion project and it's turned into something that you both enjoy and is presumably keeping itself going and keeping you going. So that's fantastic. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was, I'm really interested that, in the way that you talked about marketing, because I think, Jeff and I often talk about this whole Coca-Cola marketing is not for everybody, in the sense that like you can't just put an ad on TV. And I think it sounds like you've really kind of worked that out of the local marketing. You're working with the radio stations, you're working with the local things. And I think that's a fantastic approach. And I think it's hard for a lot of small businesses to kind of figure out how to do it effectively. So thank you so much, Tim. It's been fascinating to hear about your brewery, and thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Think of anything better than speaking about beer with friends.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. It's been awesome.